Welcome. So today I want to take a very specific look at the bloodline of the last crowned Anglo-Saxon king, Harold Godwinson, and how, despite his infamous defeat at Hastings in 1066, the current monarch is in fact his descendant. Harold was not a scion of the ancient house of Cerdic, as far as we can tell, though there is some speculation that Wulfnoth, and thus Godwin, and by extension Harold himself, was a distant relation to the kings of Wessex, or perhaps even, as some have speculated, Ethelred I, elder brother of Alfred the Great. Harold's paternal line can be traced to Godwin, the great Earl of Wessex, who rose to dominate Anglo-Saxon politics during the reign of King Edward the Confessor, and flourished during the reigns of Edward's predecessors too, Canute and his sons. Godwin was likely the son of a minor thane during the reign of Edward's father, King Ethelred the Unready. This man is known commonly today as Wulfnoth Killed, who was reputedly a good naval commander who was accused of treachery by the infamous Adric Striona and his brother, and thus turned on the king in 1109 in rebellion. For more on this whole saga and the rise of Godwin and his family, I have a much more detailed biographical video on this channel. Harold's maternal line is just as interesting. As you can see, Harold, as is hinted by his name, was in fact half Dane. Harold's mother, Gwythyr, was the daughter of Thorgil Sprackling, a chieftain likely from Scania. A further fun fact about Thorgil is that his cognomen translates as strut-leg. Another important connection is through Harold's maternal uncle, Ulf, as he married King Canute's sister, Estrid, and would found the Estrefsen house that ruled Denmark, their son Sweyn even staking his own claim to England around 1066 and after. The truth is, not much is definitively known about Harold's ancestry beyond Wulfnoth, with the life of Edward the Confessor, a manuscript commissioned by King Edward the Confessor's widow and Harold's sister Queen Edith, merely describing Godwin, her father's ancestry, as blessed, but not really going into details. As is universally known, Harold fell at Hastings, along with his two brothers Leofwine and Gurth. Tostig, the next brother down from him, and a favourite of King Edward, was killed earlier at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, along with Harold Hardrada, another claimant to the throne. Events detailed in videos on this channel, by the way, specifically the battles of Fulford and Stamford Bridge. Harold married twice, though the first of his unions may have been informal or in the older Danish manner, not necessarily sanctioned by the church. His first wife was Edith Swanneck, with whom he sired many children. Interestingly, as an aside, Harold did marry again, without divorcing Edith, probably in late 1065, even siring a child with another Edith, just to be confusing. This Edith was the sister of two key allies, Edwin, Earl of Mercia, and Morcar, Earl of Northumbria, the nobles that were defeated in the Battle of Fulford. The marriage was designed to cement the support of these men for Harold's own claim to the throne in January of 1066. This brief union produced a son, Harold, or Harold Haraldsson. Yet it was not this man who passed his blood down to the current monarch. Harold and his mother were driven into exile soon after Duke William's invasion, fleeing to Dublin initially before, at some point before 1098, heading to the court of Olaf, King of Norway, who perhaps still felt gratitude for being spared after the Battle of Stamford Bridge, when his father, King Harold Hardrada, had been killed by King Harold Godwinson. Harold Haraldsson served with Olaf's successor Magnus in his campaign in the Northern Isles later on, but disappears from history around this point. To trace the lineage of the current monarch to King Harold, we have to focus on a daughter, Gwythyr. Gwythyr made her way with Gunhild, another daughter, and her grandmother of the same name, to Flanders after the family's failed attempts to regain the throne. With her brothers Godwin and Edmund, Gwythyr made her way then to the court of Sweyn Estrefsen, King of Denmark. Around 1074 or 75, she was matched with the Russian Prince of Smolensk, Vladimir, who would later rise to become Grand Prince of Kiev in 1113, though after his wife had died in 1107. As with her own father's marriage, this union proved fruitful, with King Harold's grandson, Mstislav, even being known in Norse circles by this name, Harold, and succeeding as Grand Prince in 1125, ruling until 1132. He had a daughter, Euthrosine, who married into the Hungarian royal family, becoming the Queen of Géza II. As we can see, this line continued through the kings of Hungary until arriving at Yolanda of Hungary, who married into the Aragonese royal family. Isabella, daughter of Yolanda, married into the French royal family, eventually arriving at the more familiar name and person of Isabella, the so-called she-wolf of France, who succeeded in removing her husband, Edward II, King of England, from power in 1327. Edward III succeeded to the throne of England, siring many sons himself, with the eventual usurpation of Henry Tudor in 1485, creating the direct line down through which Queen Elizabeth II and then her descendants derived their blood tie to Harold Godwinson. This is because Henry Tudor was a descendant from both lines of descent from Harold. Another line, simplified here, also descends through the kings of Hungary and France, leading to Catherine, Queen of King Henry V, who married Owen Tudor after the king's death. His son, Edmund Tudor, married Margaret Beaufort, herself a direct descendant of Edward III through the Beaufort line, reaching back to John of Gaunt, third son of Edward. This union produced the man who would claim the throne through conquest after the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485. So there we have it. Just to summarise, Harold's descent derives through Russian, Hungarian, then Aragonese and French royal connections, and it is in this way that the blood of King Harold Godwinson still runs true in the veins of the current monarch to this day. Thanks for listening. Your view really is greatly appreciated and does help the channel grow. If you enjoyed this content, then think about dropping it a like, and I shall see you next time.